Hi, I'm Ronnie from Ronnie's Garage. Today we're having our monthly tech meet where we're going to be talking about the Silver Shadow series. We're going to talk about the differences between the Silver Shadow 1 and the Silver Shadow 2. Today we're going to talk about the Silver Shadow series. And when they went in 77, between 76 and 77, actually 76, the Corniche and the Camargue were the ones that took a lot of the new changes. But we'll just talk about the shadows. They're very similar. This is a 1976 Silver Shadow. They didn't call it a Silver Shadow 1. They just called it a Silver Shadow. When they came out with this one in 1979, this is an 80 model, but in 77, they called it the Silver Shadow 2. So this was the last of the early series. This was probably the most refined version of the Shadow at the time. It drives smoother and more refined than all the previous versions. The biggest drawback to the 76 is the smog part. They are difficult to smog sometimes. The whole smog program, from 75 on, all cars had to have catalytic converters in the United States. And when the initial smog controls went on with the PCV valve way back in the 60s, it seemed like every year they just pulled more and more power away from the engine. And this is no slouch, but it's got a lot of stuff. We'll open the hood here, and if you look at it, there's a whole lot of stuff on top of this engine. A whole lot of stuff, a lot of wires and vacuum lines and valves and all kinds of stuff. And all these are designed to reduce emissions out the tailpipe. This is a 1980, which in California it had fuel injection, but this is a federal car, so it still has carburetors on it. You can see it's a lot cleaner looking. There's a lot less garbage on it. Still has some, but they did even though this failed smog yesterday, they did a better job of retaining the power. This seems much more powerful car than this over here.
So it was a federal car?
Yeah, it's a 49 state car. The cars that were sold new in California, they have a C at the end of their serial number, and they're fuel injected, the very first fuel injected cars for Rolls-Royce.
Are they more temperamental to work on?
What, the fuel injection?
Yeah.
No, I think they're less trouble if they're driven regularly.
Yeah.
The carburetors, it's old school stuff. A lot of fuel smells and fuel leaks, and stuff like that. Fuel injection. The old fuel injection cars are having more and more problems now because of the constant redesigning of the fuel mixtures or fuel composition. So the rubbers are breaking down, and there's a lot of problem with that. And plus, they throw alcohol in it, which adds, it absorbs moisture, so there's a lot more water problems and stuff like that. Yes, sir.
Where does the Silver Wraith fit into this?
The Silver Wraith is a long wheelbase version. The Silver Wraith 2, it would have a vinyl top, it'd be 4 inches longer. The Silver Shadow had a version of that too, and it was just a Silver Shadow LWB, long wheelbase.
So the rear window's smaller.
Right, it has a smaller rear window. Generally, most of them will have a Everflex or vinyl top. They add 4 inches in this back door. Right here, and that's for foot or leg room in the back. They are a little longer riding. They ride a little bit smoother only because of the wheelbase.
Engines are the same?
Yes, all the mechanicals are the same.
What kind of fuel injection did they use?
Bosch CIS, early. And so if this were a California one, it would look completely different under the hood. It would look more something like these later cars.
So, Ronnie, why did you say this has carburetors and not fuel injection?
Why?
Yeah.
Because this is a federal car.
Oh.
So to sell a car new in California in 1980, it had to be fuel injected. They had to have the oxygen sensor, which monitors the exhaust gases so it can control the mixture. There's no mixture controls on this automatic. You have to adjust them. On fuel injection, it has an automatic control. It works off of the lambda swing, and that's really technical, but they're cleaner cars. But the first ones were really doggy.
So is that a dealer modification or from the factory to do those changes, the fuel injection?
That's factory. And like I said, if this were a 1980 Silver Shadow California car, This one is SRL 40584. It would be 58 something C. Okay,
Aren't
that's
those Lambda smog systems from either Volvo or Saab?
all cars have a Lambda system.
Oh, I didn't know.
Lambda is it's a mathematical thing, stoichiometric, we call
Okay.
it. That's out of my pay scale. I just know what it's called and I know how it works. That's about it. So when they went from the Silver Shadow 1 to the Silver Shadow 2, if we close the hood on these two cars, externally there's very few things you can see that will let you know that it's different. The first thing that's easiest to notice is the mirrors. They went to this rectangular type mirror on the Silver Shadow 2, whereas the Shadow 1s, they had the round mirrors. For some reason, then they didn't go with electric on these early ones. They have the cables also, which are kind of goofy. The right ones never worked right. This one has a right mirror. Not all of them did, just like these.
So it didn't come with a right mirror?
No. They could be ordered with them. The later cars, they all have them.
Okay.
But the early ones, they didn't do that. But if you look at the dash top, from the outside, you see that dash is uniformly smooth over there. This has a hump in the driver's area. Okay. And then at the back, if you look at the tailpipes, the Shadow 2s have a double tailpipe, and the ones have a single. So that's all you can see from the outside.
They don't have the wood trim here either.
Right. Right, they don't have the wood trim up there. But,
And it says Shadow 2 on the back.
well, I've seen a lot of Shadow 1s with Shadow 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yes. And a lot of Cornishes with the Corniche 2, 3, and so
What
on.
did you say the trim is missing? Which trim doesn't?
There's,
have it?
the Shadow 1 has a wood trim right here up
Oh, I
against
got
the
it.
windshield.
Okay. Okay.
And this one does not. It has a totally different design dash.
Okay.
But the innards, the mechanicals on these cars, they made a lot of improvement, hundreds, I believe. A lot of changes. Suspension-wise, they're similar, but this has a regular, they call it a worm and roller. Is it a worm and roller? Yeah, worm and roller steering box. So it's a steering box on one side that the steering wheel hooks up to. Then it has all these linkages. There's like a idler box on the other side. So they have a lot more turns in the lock to lock. And it's a lot lighter feel. It's not as precise. Modern cars, they went to the rack and pinion on this car. So it's tighter handling, much tighter handling. I think it shortened the turning circle though. I mean, it widened it. These old cars with the regular steering boxes seem to make a U-turn a lot easier than these do because it's a wider ratio. Obviously, when we had the hood open, we saw that they changed the carburetors completely. This is an early SU carburetor. There's lots of plumbing on there. Double EGR valves. These are smog valves. And these are the HI F7, I believe, SU carburetors.
So what are you gonna have to do to make this one pass this one, this one?
Just adjust the mixture. It's just a little too rich. I didn't check it before I took it off.
How come they have two separate EGR valves?
On this car, it's kind of goofy because an EGR valve, for those of you who don't know what it is, Chuck's an engineer, he understands it. EGR valve, the EGR stands for exhaust gas recirculation. So the job of the EGR valve is to reduce the visible smog. It's nitrates of oxygen, NOx. So if you ever get your car smogged, you'll see there'll be a column for NOx, and it'll be in parts per million. So the EGR, what it does is it cools down the cylinder temperature to reduce pinging, which causes this nasty stuff out there. And it does it by, when you give it accelerate, you put it in the throttle, it dumps exhaust gases directly back into the carburetor or into the cylinder. So it cools the cylinder is what it does. Now this one has two valves, and one of them does that job, this back one. Its job is to clean the exhaust. The other one, this is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard of. The 76 has a real bad tendency of idling real high when it's warm. And when you turn a car off that's idling really high, it'll keep running. Jagoo, jagoo. They call it diesel. Jagoo, jagoo, jagoo. So what happens is when you turn the car off on this, it dumps exhaust gas into the carburetor and it makes it stall. That's all it does. It just makes it stall. Yeah. And they have, well, yeah, it leaves it out. Yeah, so that's its job. And I have seen a lot of cars come in where the car will not run worth a damn. First thing I do is I look at that valve, because if it's opening, it's not going to run with a darn. And it's usually a vacuum valve or a little electrical switch that's causing this.
Those look very similar to General Motors EGR valves, are they?
They are a GM
Okay.
EGR valve.